Hi guys, my tonight's lesson is transitive and intransitive verb. Verb is of two types. I have divided verb first into two types: transitive verb and intransitive verb. You see that I have given some examples of transitive verb and intransitive verb. Okay? The verb having an object is called transitive verb, and the verb having no object is called intransitive verb. My dear boys and girls, just follow me, follow my guidelines and instructions of how you can detect an object in a sentence. First sentence that I have written on the board: I work out the sums myself. Work out means here solve. I work out the sums myself. Just ask the finite verb by what. What do I work out? It simply answers the sums. So, the sums is an object, and the verb workout has definitely the object, the sums. So, it is an example of transitive verb. Now go to intransitive verb. The verb having no object. The dog barks. Here the finite verb is barks, and ask the finite verb by what or whom. You see, what? No, there is no answer. Whom? There is no answer. So, it is an example of intransitive verb. My dear boys and girls, now come to the second example of transitive verb. She has made a beautiful doll. She has made a beautiful doll. You see that made is verb and has is auxiliary verb. Now ask made. What has she made? It simply answers a beautiful doll. So it is a transitive verb because a beautiful doll is the object. Now come to the second example of intransitive verb. He snores when he sleeps. He snores when he sleeps. That means at the sleeping time, he makes a nasal sound in deep sleep. Snores. Ask snores by what or whom? There is no answer. Ask the verb sleeps by what or whom? There is no answer. So, both the verbs snores and sleeps are the examples of intransitive verb. My dear boys and girls, now come to the third example. You should not pluck the flowers. You should not pluck the flowers. Here should is modal, it is auxiliary verb, and pluck is the finite verb. Ask pluck by what or whom? By what? The answer is the flowers. The answer is the flowers. So the flowers is object and clock is the transitive verb. Clear? Now come to the third example of intransitive verb. The children swim in this pond. Children is subject, swim is finite verb, and in this pond is adverbial. And ask the verb swim by what or whom? There is no answer. There is no object. It is not followed by any object. So, swim is an example of intransitive verb. Now come to the fourth example. He gave me 5 guavas. He gave me 5 guavas. Gave is the finite verb. Ask gave by what? And it will simply give you the answer 5 guavas. So 5 is determiner and guavas is an example of object. And by whom? Ask the finite verb. By whom? Me. Me is the answer. So me is object and guavas is also object. Clear? They are resting. Sorry. Number 4. I can dive into the river. Can is auxiliary verb, that is the modal verb, and dive is finite verb, and followed by no object. Ask dive by what or whom? There is no answer. So it is an example of intransitive verb, and into the river is an example of adverbial of place. Now come to fifth example of transitive verb. I should give him a good slap. That means a good beating. I should give him a good slap. Should is auxiliary verb. Give is finite verb. Whom? Answer is him. So him is an object. And a good slap is also an object. There are 2 objects in the last 2 sentences. Number 5. They are resting under a tree. They are resting under a tree. Ask the finite verb resting by what or whom? There is no answer. Under a tree is adverbial. It is the adverbial of place, and resting is not followed by any object. So resting is an example of intransitive verb, and R is auxiliary verb. Now come to the 6th example of intransitive verb. He laughs heartily. Heartily is adverb. Laughs. Ask the finite verb laughs by what or whom? There is no answer. So it is an example of intransitive verb. But my dear boys and girls, you see that in the last 2 sentences there are 2 objects in each sentence, me and guavas. So guavas is direct object and me is indirect object. What is a direct object? Direct object includes any inanimate object or the little humble creatures like birds, rats, bats, ants, etc. And stone, wood, tree, all these are apple, guava, all these are the examples of direct object, having no life, having no life, inanimate object, and the little humble creatures are direct objects. And what is indirect object? Indirect object is a person, and you know that if you personify any object, suppose the tree is speaking to somebody, suppose the flower is speaking to somebody, suppose the little creatures are also speaking to somebody, that means the author, the writer has attributed life or human qualities to those little creatures, then they are indirect objects. Remember it. Then they are indirect objects. Then how should we detect object in a sentence? Simply ask the finite verb by what or whom, and the answer is object. And the verb having object is called transitive verb, and the verb having no object is called intransitive verb. And remember that object is of two types, that is direct object and indirect object. Direct object includes all the inanimate objects, little creatures, humble creatures, and indirect object suggests only persons. And remember it, when the author or the poet or the speaker is attributing life or human qualities to any inanimate object, they or it should be treated as indirect object. Clear? And the next lesson is going to be change of voice from active to passive, because we need object just to change a sentence from direct to indirect object. Sorry, from active to passive voice. So we must know how to identify an object in a sentence, because at the time of the change of voice from active to passive, we must transfer the object in the place of subject during voice change. However, let's end the lecture and try to follow my lesson. Stay safe, stay mellow, and avoid mass gathering. And I think that you have understood my lesson. And if my lesson comes to your benefit, my dear boys and girls, don't forget to subscribe my channel. Don't forget to like, to share, to comment. Share it as far as practicable, because many pupils or students will be benefited. Thanking all of you. Good night.